There is something stirring right now, something you cannot quite name, but you feel it moving through you like a current beneath still water. It does not announce itself. It does not demand your attention with noise or spectacle. It simply arrives, quietly, persistently, like a shadow that grows longer as the sun shifts across the sky. You may have felt it already. Perhaps it came as a pause in the middle of an ordinary moment, a sudden stillness that made you stop and listen to something you could not hear. Perhaps it was a memory that surfaced without warning, vivid and charged with an emotion you thought you had left behind long ago. Or perhaps it was something even more subtle, a feeling deep in your chest that something is coming, something important, something that will change the way you see everything. Even though you have no idea what it is yet, pay attention to that feeling. Do not dismiss it. Because what is happening right now is not random. It is not your imagination reaching for meaning where there is none. Right now, at this very moment, the sun is beginning its slow and deliberate approach towards Saturn, and as these two forces draw closer to each other in the sky, they are creating a kind of pressure that you can feel even if you cannot explain it. Astrologers have watched this alignment for centuries, and they have given it a name that carries weight. They call it a point of truth, a moment where the walls you have built around uncomfortable realities begin to thin, where the stories you have told yourself to stay comfortable start to unravel, and where what is real becomes impossible to look away from. This is not something that crashes into your life all at once. It does not work like that. Instead, it unfolds slowly, carefully, like a door that opens just a crack at first, allowing a thin blade of light to cut through the darkness of a room you have kept sealed for far too long. Now consider what these two forces represent when they meet. The sun is your awareness, your identity, the burning center of who you are and how you see yourself in the world. It is the part of you that seeks to shine, to be seen, to understand its own nature. Saturn is something entirely different. Saturn is old. Saturn is patient. Saturn carries the weight of time itself, along with every lesson you have ever been asked to learn and every consequence you have ever tried to avoid. Saturn does not care about comfort. It cares about truth. It cares about what is real and what is built to last. And when these two meet, when the light of your awareness collides with the unflinching gravity of time and truth, something extraordinary happens. The things you have hidden from yourself begin to rise, not violently, not chaotically, but with a quiet certainty that makes them impossible to ignore. It is like standing in a room where the lights have been dim for years, and someone slowly turns up the brightness, revealing every crack in the walls, every stain on the floor, every detail you trained yourself not to see. But here is what makes this particular moment different from any other. Here is what should make you stop and truly listen. The timing of this alignment is not isolated, it has been prepared. Over the past several weeks, other planetary movements have been shifting the ground beneath your feet in ways you may not have consciously noticed. Recent lunar phases have been working on you like tides pulling at the deepest parts of your emotional landscape, stirring feelings that were buried so far down you forgot they existed. Slower planets have been holding steady in their positions, creating a rare kind of cosmic stillness, a backdrop of silence against which this Sun and Saturn conjunction stands out like a single note played in an empty cathedral. Everything has been building toward this. Every restless night, every moment of unexplained anxiety, every flash of a memory you thought was insignificant, all of it has been leading here, preparing you for what you're about to understand. And now that you do know, you might begin to notice things shifting in ways that feel both unsettling and strangely familiar. There is a growing need for clarity that might surprise you with its intensity. Questions you thought you had answered long ago may return, but this time they carry a different weight, a sharper edge that cuts through the comfortable explanations you once accepted. You might find yourself looking at patterns in your life that you never recognized before, cycles of behavior that repeat with eerie precision, recurring themes in your relationships, choices that seemed independent at the time but now appear connected by an invisible thread that stretches back further than you ever realized. Certain connections in your life may suddenly feel deeper, more layered, as if beneath the surface of an ordinary relationship there exists an entire history you have only just begun to uncover. Saturn does this. It brings a sense of age to things, a feeling of familiarity that defies logic. You might encounter someone and feel as though you have known them across distances of time that make no rational sense. You might revisit a place and feel a recognition that your conscious mind cannot explain. This does not have to be interpreted through any particular lens of belief. It can simply mean that your mind is finally connecting dots that were always there, linking past and present in ways that create a kind of understanding you have never experienced before. And once you start seeing these connections, you cannot stop. They are everywhere. They have always been everywhere. You simply were not ready to see them until now. As the Sun draws closer to its exact meeting point with Saturn, the effect intensifies in ways that are both exhilarating and uncomfortable. This is where it gets interesting, because this is where you lose the ability to hide. The distractions that once worked so well begin to fail you. The thoughts you push to the back of your mind start moving to the front, and they arrive with a clarity that is almost startling in its precision. Emotions you buried months or even years ago begin to surface, not to destroy you, not to pull you under, but to be seen and finally acknowledged. They rise because this alignment creates a space where denial loses its power completely. You cannot look away anymore. You cannot pretend you do not know what you know. And while that might sound frightening, there is something deeply liberating hiding inside that fear, because the energy you spent maintaining those illusions is now free, and you can feel it returning to you like blood flowing back into a limb that has been numb for far too long. There is also something happening with your sense of timing that deserves your attention. Saturn is deeply connected to time, more deeply than any other force in the astrological framework. It governs delays, and those delays are never accidental, never meaningless. Every moment you waited, every door that refused to open when you pushed against it, every plan that was forced to slow down or stop entirely, all of it was creating space for something you could not yet see. And now, as this conjunction forms, there is a quiet but undeniable feeling that something is finally ready to emerge. Not because the external world has suddenly rearranged itself in your favour, but because you have changed. You have been shaped by the waiting itself. Your perspective is different now. Your understanding runs deeper than it did before. You're not the same person who first asked those questions or first stood before those closed doors, and that difference is exactly what makes this moment possible. This is where the real shift begins, and it is important that you understand the full weight of what is happening because it will change everything that follows. As your awareness expands under this alignment, it does not just illuminate the path ahead of you, it also reveals the threads that have been weaving through your entire life, connecting moments and choices and relationships in a pattern so intricate and so deliberate that you could not have seen it from where you were standing before. You begin to notice how certain people appeared in your life at exactly the right time, not a moment too early, not a moment too late. You begin to see how certain failures, the ones that felt devastating at the time, redirected you towards something you never would have found otherwise. You begin to understand that the chaos you experienced was never truly chaos at all. It was a design you could not read, a language you had not yet learned to speak, and now the translation is finally becoming clear. Certain people will come to mind during this time with a force that catches you completely off guard. Not casually, not as passing thoughts that drift in and out, but with a vividness that demands your full attention and refuses to let go. Interactions you once dismissed as ordinary will replay in your memory and reveal layers of meaning you completely missed the first time. You will start to see why certain connections affected you so deeply, why some people stayed in your life when logic said they should have left, why others disappeared just when you thought they would stay forever, and why the ones who hurt you the most may have been the very ones who taught you the most important lessons you have ever learned. This is not about romanticizing pain or pretending that suffering was somehow a gift wrapped in difficult packaging. This is about finally seeing the full picture, understanding not just what happened in your life, but why it happened and what it was quietly, persistently preparing you to become. And as these realizations continue to build, layer upon layer, something else happens beneath them. Something quieter, deeper, and more powerful than anything that came before it. You begin to feel things resolving internally, settling into place like bones that were out of alignment finally finding their proper position. This happens even when nothing in your external world has changed at all. A memory that once carried a sharp emotional charge begins to soften, not because you have forgotten the details, but because you have finally understood the meaning behind them. A resentment you carried for years, something that felt like it had become part of your identity, begins to loosen its grip on you, not because someone finally apologized, or because justice was finally served, but because you no longer need any of that to happen in order to be free. This is the kind of healing that does not require permission or participation from anyone else in the world. It happens within you, between you and your own history, in the quiet space where honesty meets acceptance, and it is one of the most profound gifts this alignment can offer to anyone willing to receive it. As the conjunction reaches its exact point, everything converges into a single moment of extraordinary stillness. It is not emptiness. It is not silence born from absence. It is fullness. It is the kind of quiet that exists not because there is nothing left to say, but because everything that needed to be said has finally been spoken, heard, and understood. The Sun and Saturn align with precision, and in that precision there is a feeling of truth so steady, so clear, so undeniable, that it feels like the ground beneath your feet has become solid in a way it never was before. Questions that tormented you for months or years begin to settle into place. Not all of them find neat answers, but the ones that matter most, the ones that kept you awake at night, begin to feel less like open wounds and more like understood chapters of a story that is still being written by your own hand. And then comes the release, and you need to be ready for it because it will change you. Illusions you held on to, sometimes for years, sometimes for your entire life, begin to dissolve. Not with drama or destruction, not with the violent collapse you might have feared, but with a quiet recognition that they were never real to begin with. You see things as they are, relationships, ambitions, fears, hopes, all of them stand before you stripped of every story you ever layered onto them, and in their bare truth, some of them are more beautiful than you ever imagined possible, and some of them are far less than what you pretended they were. Both of these realizations are necessary. Both carry their own kind of freedom, and both require a kind of courage that you may not have known you possessed until this very moment. You begin to sense which paths still belong to you, and which ones have reached their natural end. This is not about judgment or failure. It is about resonance, about feeling in your body and in your bones which directions still carry life and which ones have gone quiet. Certain paths will start to feel lighter, more natural, as if they are pulling you forward with a gravity of their own that requires no effort to follow. Others will feel heavier, more resistant, more exhausting, and you will know with a certainty that surprises you that continuing down those roads would cost you more than you are willing to pay. Saturn does not make these decisions for you. It has never made decisions for anyone. What it does is show you the honest, unfiltered truth of where each path leads, and then it stands back and trusts you to choose wisely. There is also a strengthening of something within you that is difficult to name but impossible to miss once you feel it. Call it inner authority. Call it self-trust. Call it the quiet power of someone who has finally stopped looking for permission to be who they are. It is the feeling that you no longer need to explain yourself to anyone, not out of arrogance or defiance, but out of a calm certainty that your own understanding is enough, that your own perception of your life is valid without anyone else confirming it. Your boundaries become clearer during this time, not as walls built to keep others out, but as honest, compassionate expressions of who you are and what you will and will not accept in your life going forward. This is personal power in its truest and most sustainable form. It is not loud, it is not aggressive, it is not performed for an audience. It is steady, grounded, and unmovable, like a mountain that does not need to prove it is strong. As the Sun begins to move beyond Saturn, carrying the imprint of their meeting forward into the days and weeks that follow, you will notice something remarkable and deeply reassuring. The clarity does not fade. It does not disappear when the alignment passes. It becomes part of you, woven into the way you think, the way you feel, the way you move through your days. Your reactions to things change. Situations that once confused you feel straightforward now. Decisions that once paralyzed you with their complexity feel manageable, even simple, because you are seeing them from a place of truth rather than a place of fear. You stop looking outside yourself for answers that were never out there to begin with, and you realize with a kind of peaceful amazement that the most important answers were always within you, waiting patiently for you to become still enough, honest enough, and brave enough to finally hear them. There is a rebalancing that happens in your emotional world as well, a settling that feels like coming home after a journey you did not realize you were on. The feelings that surfaced during this alignment find their proper place within you. They are no longer overwhelming or confusing or threatening. They are integrated, understood, given their rightful place in the story of your life in a way that makes you feel more complete rather than more burdened. Closure arrives for things you thought would remain open and painful forever, and it arrives not because someone else finally gave it to you, but because you gave it to yourself by seeing the full truth of what happened and accepting it without needing it to be different. You might feel gratitude rising in places where you least expect it. Gratitude for delays that once frustrated you beyond measure. Gratitude for challenges that once brought you to your knees. Gratitude for the people who walked away from you, because their absence created the exact space that was needed for something truer and more aligned to enter your life. This gratitude is not forced or performed or manufactured from positive thinking. It is the natural, inevitable result of seeing the larger design of your life, of understanding at last that every single piece of your journey, even the pieces that felt like terrible mistakes, even the pieces that felt like pure loss, played an irreplaceable role in bringing you to this exact moment of clarity, strength, and self-knowledge. And so here you stand, not at an ending, but at a beginning that feels earned in a way that no beginning in your life has ever felt before. The portal that opened during this alignment was never about transporting you to some magical destination outside yourself. It was about bringing you home to your own truth, home to your own knowing, home to the deeper current of your life that has been flowing beneath every decision you ever made, every heartbreak you ever survived, every quiet triumph you ever celebrated alone, and every dark moment of doubt that made you question whether any of it meant anything at all. It meant everything. Every single moment of it meant everything, and now you can see that clearly. You have crossed a threshold that cannot be uncrossed. What you have seen in this process cannot be unseen. What you have understood about yourself and your path cannot be forgotten or unknown. And from this place, from this new and unshakable foundation of clarity, self-trust, and hard-earned wisdom, everything that comes next in your life will be different. Not because the world around you is magically transformed, not because the stars have rearranged your circumstances, but because you have changed. You're not who you were before this moment. You're someone who sees more clearly, feels more deeply, chooses more wisely, and trusts more fully in the quiet, steady truth of your own becoming. And that single shift, as quiet and as internal as it may seem, changes absolutely everything. It changes how you love. It changes how you speak. It changes how you walk through a room. It changes how you meet the eyes of another person. It changes the very energy you carry with you into every moment of every day that follows this one. And the world around you, whether it knows it consciously or not, will feel the difference. Because truth, once it takes root inside a person, does not stay hidden. It radiates outward, silently, powerfully, endlessly, touching everything and everyone it reaches, and that radiation has already begun within you.